All right, good morning, everyone. Welcome. Hi, everyone. Welcome. Welcome. Thank you all for spending part of your Saturday morning with us. This is a special meeting of the Waterbury Selectboard for Saturday, January 10th. It is now a little past our start time, 9:36 a.m. This is technically a meeting, but again, it's really a budget adjustment meeting, and we'll get into more of what that means. My name's Alyssa Johnson. I'm the chair of the Waterbury Selectboard. I'm talking into a microphone. We also have two folks joining us online. So I just want to note that we're recording this meeting with Orca and also have a hybrid meeting on Zoom. So it will be very important that all of us board members and folks asking questions use the microphone. I know it's quite a lot in this particular room, but it really helps with the recording. So just thank you everyone for being open to using the microphone. For folks online, I'm just going to note that we have a presentation that we're showing here in the room. I'm going to be screen sharing that. For folks here in the room, we have budget documents in the back. For folks online, I am not going to screen share those. They are way too small, but they are all posted on the Municipal website in the same place where you found the link for this meeting. So I will reference which ones are happening. I see a thumbs up from Sandy. So I think we're ready to kick off. Let's see if my slide works. So welcome and overview is just, Mike, did you have a note? Nope. Oh, okay, great. But thank you for pausing me. I will say, would someone on the select board just approve the agenda for formality? We would need a motion and a second.
I make a motion to approve. Sorry.
I just want to say who you are.
Mike Bard. I make a motion to approve the agenda as presented. Thank you.
Tori Taravella, second.
All those in the select board in favor, please say aye. Aye. Any opposed, any abstentions? For the record, the agenda is approve agenda, budget adjustment day, public comment, adjourn. We're scheduled until 11:30, so we will aim to be in about that amount of time and know that we're also here and open to taking more questions if it makes sense. So again, what is today? Why are we here? We have worked hard over the past month plus to come up with a draft of the budget for town meeting day. Ultimately, the budget will be voted on by voters on March 3rd at 9 a.m. At Brookside Primary School, but we wanted to have this opportunity, similar as we did last year, to say, this is where we've landed so far. Is there questions, comments, things we'd like to review further? The actual warning for town meeting needs to be finalized by February 1st, 2026. We'll probably do it a little sooner. But between then and now, essentially, we have the opportunities to make additional edits. So we have a lot of draft documents here. We're going to do a quick high-level presentation on some of this. Again, as I noted, this has come out of 4 meetings in December, 1 in January. And I would just also acknowledge that we have a municipal manager in the town of Waterbury, Tom Lights, who has helped very heavily with that. He is not here today, so obviously we on the board will do our best, but also acknowledge that we may have questions that we're not able to answer today, and that we'll get back to folks. We are doing the same presentation at our meeting this coming Monday at 6:30 p.m., so there will be opportunity for additional folks, and also we can follow up then. Do any other board members or the public have questions or comments before we dive in? All right, I'm going to pass down.
Roger Clapp. I just wanted to make a public comment about the town meeting study committee, which was formed just a few weeks ago, and we've been taking applications. We now have 5 applications, and the board has authorization to appoint 9 on Monday. So if anyone else is interested in joining the study group, it's a year-long study to look at ways to improve both the quantity and quality of public input in public decision-making around the town meeting. And we would welcome more applications on before Monday. So we'll be making those appointments. And then there's going to be an additional 4 positions so we can add after town meeting, assuming that we'll get more people aware of it at the town meeting. Yeah.
Is there a possibility to add a remote option for the 21st meeting? That's my barrier, so I can't attend the first meeting.
Yes. We'll make arrangements. It's going to be in the Steel Room at 7:30 on the 21st, and we'll make arrangements to have a Zoom option. Did you want to introduce yourself?
What? No.
That's Kane, by the way.
All right, we'll dive right in. Again, I think my goal is time check. It's 9:41. If we can be done our upfront talking by 10 a.m., again, kind of go where you all want to go in terms of questions, comments, further details. So again, we're going to do a high-level run-through, very high level, and we can get into more detail as we go. So first, to orient folks, we're going to start with local option tax. If you're in the room, you have a vertical piece of paper. If you're online, the document is called Budget-Local Option Tax. Waterbury has a local option tax. Voters approved the creation of a charter back at the very end of 2023 to allow this. We started receiving money in the middle of 2024. We received money throughout all of last year in 2025. When the initial charter was proposed, there was notes of the types of things the funding could be used for. We did earlier this year also formally adopt that as a select board policy. So the bullets you see on the screen are reflecting those things that we said we would use this new additional local option tax money for. We're going to run through this as the first component of the budget because things that we are proposing to fund out of local option tax impact other things that are in the budget. So we're starting here. And I know there's been running conversations for those of you who have been at select board meetings about categorizing these things. So right now we're running through in order by category. So you'll note that there's titles and then the expenses relevant to the category are next. I'm going to turn it over to Tori, and in general, know if board members have things to add, they can always raise hands, but we'll pass the mic down.
All right, this is my first time doing this, so I don't really know what to do. As you'll see on the local option tax draft budget, we are proposing to use it to spend for gravel roads, some budget for sidewalks, as well as new fire trucks and public works vehicle, pool filter, which will hopefully extend the life of the pool, as well as some debt reduction and investments toward housing and sheriffs in Randall Meadow and everything. Yeah. Yes.
Just would note that we, as I said, received this funding last year, and so we had it as a separate item at town meeting, so folks voted on just the local option tax items, and there's some of that moves forward. So we just wanted to note that last year at town meeting, we did use local option tax funding for a fire truck and a public works vehicle. You'll see those on your list in the top section with parentheses 2025. They're noted because we still need to be paying for them. When we authorized them, we said pay over 3 years. So again, those are things that were already committed before we looked at spending any more of that. So that was just what this first slide was. And that's why you'll see there's multiple years going out on this spreadsheet for things that we're saying would be a multi-year commitment, either that we've made previously or are proposing to make. And then Tori covered the overview categories.
you gotta use the mic.
I'll bring it over.
Yeah, no problem. Just for the public's information, I want to clarify the public works vehicles. Number 10, I believe that's the tandem, new purchase of the tandem, just so people know. And I'm assuming the 75,000 is a pickup truck, new pickup truck.
Thank you, Chris. Yeah, we're going to continue the gravel road investment, same amount as last year. The investment in sidewalks, we're going to be focusing on the village. And then the fire truck, we're still paying for from last year, as well as a new demo truck that will require some financing. And capital fund to continue increasing the wonderful fund balance. And then public works was, as Alyssa pointed out, a mixture of approved last year and this year, or well proposed for this year. Okay, come on up.
So to Mr. Vian's point, if it's a tandem truck, I believe the requirement for the tandem truck was driven by the fact that the gravel pit was going to be closed. We'd be doing long distance hauls from Barry, right, or something like that. So now that is not closed. The requirements still exist. If we're already partially pregnant on this, I apologize for the terminology, but the continuous cost on it only represents that upfront cost. There's going to be logistics costs on that vehicle for many, many years, right? So are we looking at an option of using that truck in conjunction with neighboring towns, maybe on a lend-lease perspective, get some revenue back into our system? And one last question is, are you taking notes, ma'am? Okay, got it, thank you.
Do we know if we're going to do Lend-Lease program? Okay, we have not looked or discussed at that, but I think that's a wonderful idea that we should look at. So hopefully I can get an answer Monday. We'll see. Yes, sorry, we have budgeted for a pool filter of $150,000. It is hopefully going to cut down on the expense of monitoring the pool and the chemicals and hopefully extend the life of the pool a little bit longer, kind of thing. Okay. All right, we're proposing paying off 2 items using the lot funds, including the public works vehicle from last time and the fire truck, as well as adding to the natural disaster reserve fund.
Yeah, and the funding for the Natural Disaster Reserve Fund is mostly paying for equipment, including a new trailer that would be able to take all that equipment to wherever the disaster happens to be and have that material and equipment ready as soon as possible.
Thank you, Cheryl Glore. Is there a cost to where we have to store that trailer, or is that on public property?
I was going to say, I believe the plan is to store the trailer up on Woody Ave at the old shed for now. And then, yeah, and then in the event of flood, bring trailer down to the town office.
I do just want to clarify, this is the reserve fund, and the next slide has the natural disaster inventory, which has the trailer. A reserve fund would be for more response expenses. In past years, we've had to, fortunately, we've been FEMA reimbursed for them, but we've had things like public works staff needing to respond. We've had costs the town has helped support for humidifiers to folks in their home and things like that. I think we're recognizing that natural disasters are only happening more frequently, and so we all hope we don't have a natural disaster in 2026, but it seemed prudent to we're going to ask voters to both create a reserve fund so that the balance can roll over year to year, and then proposing funding it initially with local option tax in addition to the trailer and other one-time purchases that are on the next slide. Kathy?
Kathy Grace Waterbury. Do you have any guidelines for using the Natural Disaster Reserve Fund? And I'm asking this personally because the last time we had a problem, I was told that I could get help for my personal residence, but not help for our rentals. And it was pretty embarrassing, and Liz Schlegel was the one who said that. And then finally volunteers kept coming and saying, look, we have nothing to do, can we help you? And I'd have to send them away. So in light of the fact that everybody's talking about how expensive rents are, I'm just pointing out that this is another way that the village could help. And if that is the procedure, then before I vote for any more money for the disaster fund, I want to know how it's going to be spent and for whom.
Okay, we'll throw that on the agenda for Monday, I guess. Tune in. Okay. Okay, so under the Affordable Housing, Economic Development, and Community Vitality section, we have the continuing of the town plan, which was finalized this year. We also have a tree board who requested funds for a one-time tree inventory so that we can better maintain and keep track of all the trees and things they are facing in our area. For the FEMA buyout expenses, it is a local match for buyouts that are paid for the state. For some properties, there's additional complexity with potential environmental contamination, so this gives us flexibility to respond even if it's not grant eligible. The Woody Ave section is the I don't understand these wonderful acronyms that Alyssa gave me, so sorry. I'm going to put a pause on Woody Ave and make her do that. And then the county sheriff is for a kind of like a pilot program to inform us for future work if we want to switch from the state to the county or not. And then natural disaster inventory, Alyssa touched on, was for the trailer and equipment. And I'm going to, like I said, pass Woody Ave and Randall Meadow because I'm not awake enough to understand these notes.
So again, this is a collection of other funding for local option tax. I would just note FEMA buyout expenses, those are the homes where folks said, we no longer think a home should be in this location. The select board had to approve those requests. They go to FEMA, who would pay the value of the home. There was not a local match for that. So thus far there's been, so in theory, the state is covering the cost for all of that. There has been some weird complexities. Ultimately, the land from a buyout does go to the town of Waterbury. It would become town land. Some have some potential environmental concerns. So before we as the town accept that land, we want to make sure that we've done our due diligence. Some of that is potentially grant eligible, but it can be complicated and time consuming to get it done. So in short, we thought it was prudent to be transparent, have a small amount of money in the budget, and then have the flexibility to use that if it was needed to help make sure that we've done all our homework before accepting properties. So that's the FEMA buyout. Stanley Wasson and Woody Ave, the acronym Troy's alluding to is CDBDG, Community Development Block Grant / DR, Disaster Recovery. This was a big chunk of federal funding. The town applied for and received 2 awards. One is for Randall Meadow, and we'll talk more about that project later, but one is also to do planning work on the Armory / Woody Ave property to consider potential housing there. So for both Woody Ave and Randall Meadow, again, there's some funding here in the case that there were related expenses not covered by those grants to have it in the budget ahead of time instead of us saying, ooh, do we have an extra bit of money to help support that work? And then same thing with if there's legal expenses or other costs related to Stanley Wasson, sheriff was covered, and we've talked about natural disaster. Happy to take questions.
I spoke to you about this at a prior meeting that I thought that a lot of people were under the impression, and they skipped kind of over the retail part of where the lot money comes from, because I was surprised when I got my gas bill, that everything that you buy, gas, electricity, whatever, has that 1% lot tax on it. Because last year at the town meeting, the person stood up that asked for money for the Wassa Trail, which I'm glad you did put somewhere else, saying that they brought so much revenue in, and it made it, again, I think perpetuated the fact that people were only thinking it was for accommodations and food. So I think people need to be aware of that, that is for everything. And once again, I just paid a $650 gas bill for my apartment house, and 1% of it was a lot tax. And the other thing is, my brother lives in Duxbury on Route 100, and he has an 05676 zip code, and he gets charged the lot tax. I pay the gas bill up there, and he gets charged a lot bill. And other people get charged a lot bill. So my other question is, when you guys applied for this, did you put down 05677 as well? Because if you haven't, it should be checked on. Because if they're only going by zip code, that means only Waterbury residents are paying for it, not Waterbury Center residents. So I think that needs to be clarified. And I also think it needs to be clarified where the money comes from, because I added up for my taxes recently. Lot taxes cost me another $2,000 a year. Would have been cheaper to have just pay an increase in property taxes.
So I'd say the quick background is Waterbury charges a LOT or local option tax as approved by voters in all 4 allowable categories. That's sales, rooms, meals, and alcohol. All of those are already taxed by the state of Vermont at different rates. We add a 1% on top of the existing rate in the state of Vermont by charging the local option tax. It is all administered by the Department of Taxes. So with regards to who's charged and point of sale, the State Department of Taxes, who again is already collecting the existing state taxes, are the ones who collect the additional 1%. With regards to utilities and other things, I've heard differing reports to if they're charged, but essentially it's a 1% on top of anything that is already taxed by the state of Vermont in those categories. Yeah, sales tax, anything that has sales tax, it's added on top. And again, I would just note, I think part of the pitch when we said this is it is absolutely charged to Waterbury residents, no question. At no point, I think the question is that also it is also sometimes paid by folks who might just be visiting, and so it's a little more diversified than some of our other property tax funding. I'm gonna encourage us to move on for now. I said I wanna get through this by 10, it's 10 now, and we still have to do the whole rest of the budget, but happy to follow up further on this, but absolutely. And you don't even have a mic, so this isn't being recorded. I'm just kidding. Thank you. Appreciate it.
I just want to add one thing very quickly. We heard you loud and clear, because in past years, some of the LOT went to individual organizations. We have eliminated that. We have basically made it very clear that for any individual organizations looking for funds, they can, but they would do that under the special article process. So it's not that they can't request funds, they would just have, and that gives the town taxpayers and voters the ability to go yay or nay on an expense. Thanks.
All right, we're gonna keep flying per the point of having more time to talk about it. This is the bottom line up front. So everything we're showing here today would be an overall tax rate increase of 3.39% on the municipal tax rate. Again, that's what we're showing you today. We haven't warned town meeting yet, so this could change. We're here today to just give you our first draft. We obviously were trying to be mindful of the increases in taxes across the board. So just noting that there was a desire to both adequately fund municipal services and also be aware of tax increase and not unduly influence it. So that was the board's mindset going into this. We just talked through the local option tax, but just noting that there's some pretty significant expenses we were able to cover with that funding source. So had that not been the case, we would likely have a much more challenging presentation for you all today. So now we're going to transition to a new document. So if you're here in the room, it's your 11-page Town of Waterbury 2026 Operating and Capital Budget Summary. So we've run through lot. This is now, or local option tax. This is the entire rest of the municipal budget. Again, we're going to go through section by section at a very high level. I have the first part to kick off, which is general government. One of the particular impacts on the budget this year is pilot. It's, and this is also online for online folks. In line 11, this is payment in lieu of taxes. It's funding that the town receives from the state of Vermont. You'll note that it's varied over time. We budgeted last year in the budget that was approved by voters for $420,000 of income. That was higher than we received in 2024. Funnily enough, this pilot payment is funded in part due to local option taxes from not just Waterbury, but all the towns that have a local option tax. You'll note that what we actually received this year was $340,000. So as a major driver in this budget, that amount is decreased by the common level of appraisal. Waterbury's common level of appraisal is around 51%. We just got the letter. And so we received much less than we anticipated. So just wanted to flag for folks that that's a dynamic impacting that. We're in the middle of reappraising right now. So in 2027, when that's complete, we anticipate that will go way up. But we budgeted even less than we received this year, owing to the fact that if it's going to be decreased by the common level of appraisal again. I could spend hours on this. I won't get into it, but we did want to note it because that change in what we have budgeted versus what we actually received was a big driver in some of the other changes of the budget and the reason for an increase. I just mentioned reappraisal because we are doing a reappraisal right now. The town has a reappraisal reserve fund and we are proposing to use funding from it. It's actually on the back of your meeting agenda if you're here in the room, and it's posted online as well. Towns receive funding for when they need to do a reappraisal. We are in the middle of doing a reappraisal, so the budget as presented we are using funding from the reappraisal fund to help with the reappraisal, which we have a full-time municipal staffer for. Overall in general government, noting that we have had some municipal staff transition, this is budgeting to fill all vacancies and be fully staffed. There's some funding specifically for human resources consulting and an ethics officer. That was a statewide law that was passed that we're following, but noting we need staffing and human to help with these things. So again, prudent to have them in the budget so we can pay for them. Any other board members want to add?
Library. I'm on library. So our library funding this year, generally consistent with prior years as written behind me. Had some turnover in the library, so payroll increases related to increased staff hours and rather than raises, and like a few other items in our budget is increased with the rate of inflation. And a ton more information than that. Does anybody have any questions on library budget?
This is the general overview, right? Are you going to ask questions later? Okay, so this is the general overview.
Okay. All right, so moving on. Yeah. Yeah. Public Works, yeah. Mike?
Thank you, Kane. Some of the big issues have been, sorry about that, that sounds better. Overtime has increased. We have had, like, especially this winter already, we have had some snowstorms, we have had, water issues, so there has been some overtime. Hopefully, the winter will be a little more mild in the future, but we can't depend upon that, so we're just basing the overtime on the increased effects. We've had a 10% increase in the price per ton of salt, which is a major hit to the budget. That's why I think, I know we've heard a lot of complaints about with the recent ice. It's been hard to get ice, salt, and, especially with the increase, a lot of people are really trying to get salt, so it is in limited supply. Our gravel budget is funded in, sorry about that. Our gravel resurfacing budget is funded entirely with the local options tax, and that's, if we didn't have the local options tax to fund gravel resurfacing, we would probably have a higher expense, and a bigger increase in the town budget. So the local options tax, again, has helped us. We're sending less to the capital fund, but we are preparing for, there's going to be a Guptill Road repaving. And in 2026, paving includes Nealon Flats to Ring Road, Park Road North and Rotarian Way, and Barnes Hill Road beginning at the water plant. And we're trying to take a somewhat active process on, resurfacing some of our roads to keep up with things. I know that's a real concern to residents. Thank you. Any questions?
And a note that this slide is nicely straddling both the highway budget, which was in your budget packet, and the Public Works capital draft budget, which folks have as an additional attachment. All right, Recreation, Roger.
Thank you. Yeah, all of us on the Select Board act as a liaison to different town committees, and I serve as the liaison to the Recreation Committee. So that's, I think, why I got assigned this job. And we're talking about the Recreation and Parks budget, which is on page 9 of the big spreadsheets here. And the major item here is the pool, and the pool has been a major expense within recreation for a number of years, and that has remained consistently around $60,000. You'll see going back to 2022 that was 46, and then it went up to 57 and up to 60 in 2024. We've been able to get that down a little bit into the mid-50s or low 50s over the past couple of years. But generally, that's what it costs to run the pool. And the pool does have a number of supporters. And you saw in the local option tax that we're proposing to spend $150,000 this year for a new pool chlorination and filter system. Which should resolve some of the problems that we've been having past several years with algae buildup. And so we're hoping that works. Had a very successful use of what we call goop, which attaches the lining of the pool was separating out, and they were able to apply this new product, which has got that well adhered, and they're going to be spreading some more of it, which should eliminate a lot of the leakage that had been a problem over the past several years. So, by making these investments, we think that we can continue to use the pool for the foreseeable future, maybe another 10 years at least. And we did get some cost estimates last year on the what it would cost to get a new pool, entirely new pool installed, and that was going to be up in the millions of dollars, and we just decided that the town couldn't really afford that, so we're making do with the pool that we've got. Otherwise, the summer camp and the vacation breaks and school programs are well funded and well attended. We're doing a little bit less in terms of mini camps just because the demand for them has not been as strong, or the after-school programs have not been as strong as we anticipated. The Live Wires, the YMCA program, does have an after-school program, so that there are options for parents that want to have an after-school program for their kids. And we tried to have a more flexible spending system, and it didn't really attract that many more people. So we will, when we get a new deputy rec director in, we're going to try to reinstitute an after-school program, but we don't anticipate that it's going to bring in the same revenue that it has in the past. And then the parks revenue, or parks maintenance, costs approximately $130,000, and more than half of that is in labor costs, just cutting the grass and so forth. And the general goal has been to maintain the rec program as we've generally been able to run it over the past several years. Any questions? Oh, yes, we have a new rec director. Her name is Erica Linsky, and she's already started, already working on recruitment for the summer program, and we're also have some candidates for the deputy director position, and we'll be looking to make that hire within the next month. Ann.
Thank you. About the pool. 40 years ago when I moved here, the select board was talking about a new pool, and it kept being deferred primarily because of cost. Could we establish, maybe in the capital fund, I don't know where, but a fund so each year we put a little bit more money aside for a new pool so that eventually we will get a new pool. We keep replacing the liner, we keep replacing filters. And it's a shame because it's such a wonderful asset for the entire community. And I hate hearing every year we have to defer or we have to replace. And it just keeps going on, and every year it's more expensive and we defer. So I really would love it if we could have a fund that would slowly build up so that we could get a brand new pool. Thank you. Oops, sorry. Hello, Christopher.
So at a prior board meeting, actually the last one, this budget was gone over, and speaking specifically about Parks and Recreation, I want the people here to know that those two departments are currently running in the red by almost $400,000. So to Ann's point, the pool being an asset to the town as far as public use and whatnot, that project will be in the millions to replace. And as time goes on, I understand your efforts to want to put a little bit away. It's going to take more than a little bit to get to a point where that can be funded without taking a bond or some other means of fundraising to accomplish that goal. On top of the fact that between the rec and the parks, you know, we're running negative almost 400,000. So I would think our goal would be to try to curb that deficit first before we try to take on something else. And I think that's probably been the goal of the select board.
Yeah, just to respond to Chris and Ann, I think Chris's point is a good one, and the rec committee is looking at another fairly major expense, which is to build a field house, which would be an indoor facility that would have room for 2 basketball courts and volleyball and so forth. There's a real deficit of indoor recreation opportunities. It would also could also serve as a home for the town meeting. Currently, we have to shut down school in order to have town meeting at the primary school. So that's another major expense. The current estimate for that would be $8 million, and we didn't choose to put that on this next year's budget because we don't think we can afford it right now. But there are other demands on recreation in addition to the pool.
Amy Marshall Carney, line 45, I'm trying to reconcile. It says column H, 2025, as of 12/4, the recreation salary was $102,000, but the budget for 2026 is $138,000, and the change from prior year is 2.9. And actually the change from prior year, at least the beginning of December, would be $35,000, not $3,800. Yeah, so I'm trying to understand why are we short 35,000 on actuals compared to budget, but trying to raise the budget?
I don't know for sure, but I think part of that could be that we lost our rec director in mid-October and have not had a rec director until. Right, we didn't have, oh, we also lost the assistant director. But this, yeah, we could bring this up on Monday, you know, we don't.
She had a general question I was going to ask, and I know the town manager's not here, so it's not going to get answered. Is Monday he going to be available to answer? Because when I'm looking at actuals as of 12/5/25, and we're over budget, over what we said we were going to spend, there should be some explanation. If you lost a rec director, you shouldn't be over budget. You should be saving some salary there, right? I mean, kind of makes sense. It just, again, I know you can't answer it now, but in the notes, that should be explained.
Sure.
We have a pool, and the cost of chlorine has tripled because there's only one chlorine factory in the United States right now. So what used to cost $35 is now $199. So I'm just wondering if you addressed that increase just in keeping the pool open with the fees, because I'm not sure the fees have been increased very much. And I know that's tricky because taxpayers pay money into the budget for that, but I know we get a lot of out-of-towners, especially during the rec program, and I don't know if you can charge them more or whatever, but just running the pool has increased by a lot.
Just a couple of quick comments about the rec and sort of general comment. Ann was talking about not having any money to replace a pool, for example. The schools are talking about not having money to replace buildings. I would like to just suggest that, and I think it was Roger just talked about, well, we're looking at a new rec building, is that it seems like local, state, federal governments all worry about what can we do new. I think in the last year or two have something to do with the Housing Trust Fund. And while it's nice to please the community and look what we've done, there seems to be a nationwide, right back to the local, tendency to let's not worry about putting money aside for the pool. Apparently, Apparently our rec programs are already in the red. And so I guess I would like to ask the select board to, as you're looking at the budget, all of these things eventually pile up, and none of them are visible year to year. From 40 years ago, the expense of the pool, and looking ahead, homeowners have to do that. Everyone has to worry about what are we going to do for repairs or replacement. It seems like, not just towns, but overall, people are looking for what can we get new, how can we help this person, this group, that group. And in the meantime, we're piling up invisible expenses. So I'd like to say, relative to a new building, if we can't afford the pool that we have and we would like to have a new pool, why are we building something new? We have indoor facilities in umpteen schools, basketball courts, things like that. So it's one of those things that I think gets lost in communication. And it's very nice to say, look at this new program we have, or look at these new trails we have, or look at this new thing we have. And in the meantime, behind the scenes, the things that we do have crumble, and then once it's time to fix that, there is no money. So I think I'd like to see a little more balance between planning for the future and what can we do new that costs more money today.
Yep, thank you.
Okay. Planning and zoning budget, it's like the third to last page on the giant packet of legal size papers. Hopefully I'm not telling you wrong. So far there are no major changes in planning and zoning. We're continuing to focus on completing the town plan this coming year in 2026. If you'll notice, we are using, there is a line on, let me follow it over. 24, that we are using the lot funds to assist with consultant fees for the town plan. We're using $65,000 to assist in the $80,000 cost of that, and I know staff are working diligently to just limit it even more as far as those costs. Budget, there is a small increase for the Conservation Commission, which is taking on a natural resources inventory, which will be extremely helpful, I'm sure. Questions? Okay.
Now we're going to move on to fire. Overall, fire department has seen increased costs below inflation. That's something everyone wanted to hear. And dispatch costs have shown that they're increasing. Increased in equipment costs, but surprisingly a decrease in gasoline costs, which this comes as a surprise to me. That's what we like. There's not a whole lot to go over here, as there haven't been any super colossal changes other than a standard inflationary increase. So I'm just going to go straight to questions. And we didn't put a new command vehicle in the budget, though I tried, Gary.
Well, it's not just, it's actually, that's a smaller portion of it. It holds a lot of equipment. Just a question. I know that Tom's not here, and it's probably something he needs to answer unless one of you dynamic people have the answer. But all the budgets, all the different departments have a capital improvement amount that goes in each year. We don't spend that as part of our budget. That goes into a fund. But I never see what the total fund is. Is that something that could be provided so that people actually know how much this contingency money is sitting there and could help offset stuff? I realize you don't want to spend your CIP, but that's what it's there for, to help offset bigger purchases, like a pickup truck. Thanks.
So moving on.
I was at town meeting last year, and didn't I recall, weren't we supposed to buy that last year? I remember the discussion about people, there was one particular fire that the big trucks couldn't get to, and this little truck was needed for it?
Yeah, we bought the mini pump.
Okay,
That was.
Okay, so this is the pickup, right?
It's strictly a pickup the whole bunch.
Okay, just wanted to make, okay, thank you for the killer.
Okay.
I just wanted to repeat into the mic for recording purposes, we bought the mini pumper. This is a separate, different truck that was proposed. A pickup truck for equipment.
And just with regard to, I think, both comments earlier about planning for the future and fund balances, that was feedback we received specifically at town meeting last year too about, it feels like every year we're buying a fire truck, and is there a plan? So the board did spend a lot of time this summer actually looking at the capital improvement plans for each department. We did not link them all today. We're not reviewing them in detail, but we will have those shared as part of the town report for town meeting, because it's something we've talked about, what is the future upcoming needs, and we did spend time in that by department. And to Gary's point on balances and whatnot, that can be included as well. I know we've had summaries in the past couple of town reports, so just noting that we do intend to share all of that and appreciate folks flagging it. All right, we're on slide 13 of 17. The last two are logistics, so we're cruising along. I'm back to public safety.
Okay. Last year, we started a 3-year contract with state police. It's not cheap. It's about $477,000 a year. But it is that flat fee for 3 years, and we're in the second year. So that will continue. And we are anticipating some significant increases for 27 if we're able to negotiate a new contract. Waterbury is the only town that has a contract, a similar type contract where we have 2 dedicated full-time people dedicated to the town of Waterbury. Just the cost of the outfitting the police cruisers has increased substantially. So we do anticipate an increase in that in the coming year. We also, as you saw in the LOT proposal, we are proposing $75,000 to initiate a relationship with the Washington County Sheriff's Department. The difference here is that we can direct those individuals to wherever we feel needs attention, whether if it's, we have a lot of issues around speeding, and we can direct them to monitor or put out speeding checks wherever we feel is most important. We don't really have that flexibility with the state police contract. We only pay for the patrol hours on this sheriff's thing. So it's sort of a trial, at least in my estimation, it's sort of a trial thing to see if there are some alternative ways of addressing public safety that are going to be affordable. We do pay for the time off of the patrol hours. We don't get them for all of them, but they do try to compensate us if they are going to be away for a certain amount of time. Then the other last item is that our ambulance, Waterbury Ambulance Service, is proposing a 8% increase per capita on their assessment for Waterbury. They're doing that in every town that they serve, in addition to Waterbury. That's just reflective of some of the increased personnel costs that they are having to endure, cost of healthcare. And that we've looked at what it would cost us to internalize that and have that be a municipal function, and it would be easily twice as expensive if we were to take that on. So while 8% is a significant increase, it is not nearly as much as it would be if we had that as a municipal service. Questions on public safety?
Not so much a question, just a comment. The 477 for the 3-year contract, you know, if it goes up by 50,000, that'll put us, you know, a bit over $500,000. But and then on top of the 75,000 for the potential sheriff's contract, still is about $1 million less than if we had our own police department. So we still got a long ways to go before we exhaust ourselves by paying somebody else to cover our public safety in this town. Hopefully the sheriff's department contract will move the needle towards the things that state police doesn't cover, so that we can have perhaps the best coverage we can, make everybody happy for a lot less money.
Now we move on to the topic of cemeteries and the municipal building. No one ever wants to talk about cemeteries, but in the past few years, we have, due to town staffing requirements, we have been contracting out mowing and maintenance of the cemetery. It's still a fairly, and there is a very healthy reserve in the cemetery, which can pay for potential capital needs. Our 2026 goal is to have a better focus on beautification, trees, flowers, and improve basic maintenance. We've heard those issues from the public, and we hope to be able to deliver some of those. I'll move on to municipal building that we're not here today, but the budgeted cost to the taxpayers is $125,000 for that. We have done some major heating and cooling system maintenance over the last 2 years, which have been quite expensive. Hopefully, we won't have those, but as the building continues to age, we're looking to have enough of a reserve fund to cover some of those costs. We talked about last year of doing a card system for entry, for security. We have been struggling to move that project forward. Initial cost we budgeted was $20,000, and we're looking at that's probably going to be increased, and I think we have budgeted $25,000 this year, and hopefully we'll be able to get that project done. Any questions on either cemeteries or the municipal building? Thank you. And I like that Gary called us dynamic.
All right, so we're moving on to the big one here. This is the Randall Meadow bond vote. We approved the warning at our last meeting for a $4.3 million bond vote. The amount is the same as the full budgeted cost, but that doesn't mean we have to spend it if we don't need to. It helped us secure the oh my God, I'm gonna butcher this, CDBG-DR grant, which we were awarded. It's also a potential for more grant funding, and then informational meeting on the bond vote is February 17th, and it will be an Australian ballot item on the town meeting warning. I'm sure there are questions.
So bond vote warned, so that $4 million, I get it. We're not going to spend $4 million. I still question that estimate, by the way. I don't know how we come up with that number. But when you look at the current tax rate that you're proposing, that's not embedded in what will be the tax rate, is it? So this year, 57 cents. Has someone looked at the analysis of the bond vote?
So that was the preface to this. There's not a piece of paper in front of you with this information, but it seemed wisely imprudent to have a budget meeting and not address the very large elephant in the room. So to your question, I think the background on this is the timing of this bond vote is driven by the federal award, Community Development Block Grant. And essentially there's a letter, it's linked on the town website. I'm working to get a web page where we pull this all in together, but the letter we received from the state of Vermont that says, congratulations, we have $2 million with Waterbury's name on it. Here's what you need to do to get it. And one of those requirements is to prove the financing of the project. It is not allowable to do that by saying, hey, we have some money in the bank and we, the select board, say it will be okay. They need formal bond authorization. We think that in addition to the $2 million of that, there's probably another $1 million of grant funding, of which we are a very viable candidate. The grant would be the first payer on these funds. So to be clear, we are putting a bond vote up. We don't plan to issue or spend the bond in 2026 or maybe even 2027. We will have those numbers. To your point, we want to make sure that folks know what the implication is. But in my mind, this would be maybe $1 million of actual revenue that would need to be covered by taxes, potentially something we could cover totally with local option tax. Again, we'll have those scenarios because of the timeline and the warning. Again, this came up last Monday, but we wanted to be upfront with folks that this will be a separate item and we will have all of the modeling for what it would cost. But really, it's the authorization. It would be a separate question of if we actually choose to issue this debt, but we felt like it was worthwhile to ask for the authorization in order to secure the grant funding. We have more questions. Yes, come on up. And just to note, bond votes, because they're bond votes, have a totally separate and very prescribed thing. So noting that this will be in the Times Argus for 3 weeks, we have this very formal bond hearing, and it likely will also be covered at all of our select board meetings in February. We have another one on February 2nd. So much more to come on this, but again, wanted to be transparent about sharing it.
Might be asking really silly questions, but just to make sure I understand. So $4.3 million bond, of which potentially up to $3 million would already be covered. So it's really only asking for, not only, but only asking for $1 million, of which we could, in theory, use the lot tax to cover, although there's a lot of things that carry over year to year. Okay, cool. And then it would be 2026 or 2027 was my second cost. That was just TBD. Okay. Okay. Thank you. This is exciting. As a former Randall Street resident, this is super exciting, and I think it's super exciting for the town, especially if the lot can be used, because I think that without doing something like this, this will hurt businesses over time, and I think that's just not great for Waterbury. So cool.
Other board members want to add? Yep.
I understand it can seem incredibly arbitrary where the federal government says, show us you can have money and we'll give you money. It doesn't really make any sense. But that's the process we live in, and I think, with going forward and trying to secure more grants and trying to drive down how much we actually have to spend, this project is, after going through 3 floods, this project is, I think, priority number 1, at least for me on this board, and I think for every resident of Randall Street. I'm sitting next to one. You can just nod in agreement if you agree. And I'm very much excited and hopeful that we don't have to spend more than a quarter of this if the bond vote is issued.
Let me just do the wrap up, Tom, and then we'll just dive right into questions. So this is just also your friendly housekeeping. So we're going to do this once again. Feel free to join on Monday at 6:30. Have we locked it in, folks? Because I have only an hour on Monday's agenda. So hopefully we'll do an even more streamlined version, but wanted to present this same information, have more time for folks to warm in. At that meeting, we also have time to talk about what we've heard today, any changes we might want to make, We have an additional select board meeting, which is Tuesday, not Monday, because of the holiday, January 20th. So we'll be doing yet additional grant review. We're likely going to have a meeting the week of January 26th to do the actual warning, which is the big formal document that says the offices, to consider, that has all the final budget numbers. So that will be when really the final numbers will need to be locked in. But just wanting to frame for folks that there's 2 to 3 more meetings before that point. So again, the rest of this is for questions and comments. Again, as we said earlier, that bond vote has a separate informational hearing on February 17th, but may also be on these upcoming agendas as well. In town meeting housekeeping businesses, for anyone who wants to submit a petition to be on the warning, so whether we, the select board, decide or not, you can petition with signatures to get on the warning. The deadline for that is the 16th. On Friday, candidate petitions for offices up for election are due the 26th. There's a list of town offices that are open or that folks can be running for on the town website. And town meeting day is Tuesday, March 3rd at 9 a.m. at Brookside. So lots to review before we get there, but that's kind of where we're going from here. So I'm going to kill the slideshow and we'll just note we're at about 10:40, but again, we have probably another hour or so as long as folks are willing to stay and we can continue. I just want to thank everyone for being flexible with coming up and using the microphone. It looks like Mike wants to add, so I'll turn it over to him.
Just a one quick note, just that you realize we still have town meeting, and with all these budget discussions, you still have the right at town meeting to amend the budget in any way, even if it's something for $100, or $50,000 or $500,000. So, you have not, that's one of the reasons I think the beauty of town meeting is that there is the ability for townsfolk to amend the budget even at town meeting. It doesn't have to be locked in when we submit the town warning. Thanks.
Tom was next on questions.
Yeah, just more of a clarification. Again, I am not anti doing anything that is flood mitigation. That's progress, right? My concern is the analysis that goes into the decision that begets a $4 million bill for moving dirt. Someone needs to do that analysis. I think people that are well in that business probably could give you some estimates, basic estimates. And again, I know we're only going to spend what we're going to spend, but if this does come to fruition, I'm hoping there's due diligence that those costs are affordable for the town. And the impact, because I'm a student of history, is the French built this thing called the marginal line. The Germans went around it. Okay, I know that's warfare and not water, but let's just be careful about expectations about what that's going to do. I know the modeling says 1 foot, but we also have other plans for building again. I'd really like to see that analysis, and then not putting the wagon before the horse. I think anything would be good for mitigation, but there are other options, and there are neighboring towns involved. What we do in Waterbury should be impacted or could impact a downstream effect. We'd hope that would not be the case. But I think that is definitely a regional plan and not just a town plan. So again, the last thing I'll say, I was going to ask a lot of questions during this, but I think I'll reserve those for Monday when Mr. Lights can answer some of them. But just from a general comment, did you look at a way to stabilize the tax rate without an increase? And what would that cost be? What would we have to do? And I mean, how many pages was this? Line items? 16 pages with probably 400 or so line items. If we took 0.5% off one, is that going to be enough? Some of the thought process I have is only about affordability. It's not, look, everybody pays taxes. I think the big elephant in the room, and we brought it up before, is I think this municipality should be spending more, right? But it's not affordable if you got your other partner in the municipality being an education tax that gets onto that property tax. And for those people that may not be familiar with it, I know they say a lot about 50% or subsidized on the education tax. I can't remember. Anybody know what that number is? 70 payers, right? But you know where the other money comes to make up for that, right? So I'd love to be on that list one day. I'm not today. Let's just be very careful, I would say, when we say that 57 cents, because I kind of looked at it a little bit, right? In 19, it was 51.4, right? In 20, it was 55, and we had ARPA money and COVID money. In 23, it was 54.3. In 24, it's 55.7, or I'm sorry, 0.557, and we had law starting, okay? In 25, 0.55, thank you. We didn't increase. But guess what? My municipal tax did increase somehow. So my education didn't because the governor bought it down with the legislature. And now in 26, we're going up to 57, right? I'd like to see where 27 is in 28 when you start looking at this bond. That's all. Thank you.
Yeah, if I could just address that in part. I think, and Tom will have more to say about this on Monday. Part of the reason that we did keep the tax rate at zero, tax increase at zero last year was specifically because of the increase, projected increase and real increase in the education tax, and we're looking at that again. One of the concerns is if we continue to keep the tax increase at zero, eventually we're going to get hit in the face with inflation, because inflation is real. Kathy was just saying, you know, chlorine alone is going up by 13% or more. And there are other costs that are continuing to go up. So if we hit taxpayers with like 15% increase, we know that there'll be a revolution on our hands. But you know, these are the issues that we need to debate, and I fully accept that. And on the Randall Meadow, the bond, as Kane was explaining, does allow us to start spending down the $2 million that has been allocated to us. It doesn't obligate us to spend the other $2 million or even borrow against that. And part of what we'll be able to do is to do those calculations that you just asked for to show what the benefit is really going to be and make that determination. Is this something that we want to go forward with, or does this just not make a lot of sense? And we can pay for that engineering without having to take on the expense of reconnecting the floodplain. The part of the reason that the state and the whole watershed is interested in this is that it is a floodplain reconnection, which is the preferred methodology for flood mitigation, and it doesn't unduly impact downstream communities. And so we have a huge 48-acre cornfield that can be taken down. Will provide some extra storage for the floodwaters when they come, and then slowly let it dissipate. And that's, you know, one of the preferred options, and we've got the hydrologists lined up to take on that study.
I just want to make a further comment on that. We have really, I know I try to be, I look at your tax bill the way I look at my tax bill. I don't want to see increases, and we've been really good about maintaining pretty much of a zero budget. And we've looked at things without really affecting services. We've had saying, we have looked at, we may need to have a slight increase. I still say the time is not totally done that we can't look at a possible, you know, change a little bit down. But, you know, right now, this is the budget before us. So that's why we want to hear from you, the taxpayers, if you would like to see a zero. And I'm one, as one of the speakers said, we look at, sometimes we got to make real choices, and sometimes we can't have everything that we want. And all these increases, or sometimes they're nice, but can we survive? Thanks.
I see 3 hands in the room, and Sandy online, 4 hands in the room. Let me just write them down, throw them up. I had Michelle, Valerie, Steve, and Doug. I'm going to respond, let Sandy go, and then we'll move through that list. My 2 notes just also on Randall Meadow. I believe we did have to do a preliminary return on investment analysis. The state of Vermont asked for that even prior to their award process. We were actually one of the highest applicants. I believe it was 9-to-1 in terms of cost of project and relative savings. Again, that was a preliminary number, but I believe that was what the grant went in with. And part of this grant is the staff to administer it. So I'll also say federal funding is really arduous, and there's a ton of compliance. And so part of the overall cost was saying the municipal staffer, and good, bad, like it or not, if it's a worthwhile cost to access $2 million of federal funding, but that's part of what's driving the overall cost too. Again, I think we'll all say there's a lot more to come on that. It's on us to make sure we're clear, sharing clear and comprehensive plans so everyone can make a decision, and we know when we'll work on that. To the specific question about buy-down costs, I do want to acknowledge that I think there's been 2 proposals that have been considered. One at our last meeting was a proposal around some of the local option tax funding that had been allocated but not spent for housing, and the potential to use that. I will say Bill Shepelek, our previous manager, previously had talked about spending fund balance to lower the tax rate. I will say neither of those proposals were something the board moved forward with, again, with the concerns about kind of if you do it one year, then are you in even more of a hole next year? But I would just note those are the 2 that have been raised. And again, we can consider further in terms of ways of using that funding to essentially buy down taxes. Sandy, you're online, and I commend you for experiencing whatever this looks like on Zoom. So we're going to go to you next, and then the folks in the room. Go ahead.
Quick question, on the Randall Metal Bond, with the grant, is the grant required, is it a matching grant where we're required to come up with every dollar that they give us? Are we, so for every $10 spent, the town of Waterbury has to come up with 5 of that? Or is it, if we can prove that we can come up with the amount of the bond, of the grant through a bond, then they'll give us the whole bond? The whole grant, how is that?
I believe it's the latter. Again, I don't want to speak out of term before verifying it's a federal grant, so it's reimbursement based, but I do not believe it has a specific financial cash mass other than the funding necessary to fund the rest of the project, which is the rest of the amount, as you note.
Thank you.
All right, we had Michelle next, and then moving across the room.
First off, thank you. I can't imagine how difficult it was to put something like this together. I do some of this stuff for work, and gosh, this must be quite challenging. As a parent, I really love the things that the rec department offers, and I think it's awesome to support young families with the pool, with the programming. My son is about to enter kindergarten, so I have no doubt we will be taking advantage of camps in the future, et cetera. But I recognize that it operates in the red, and so that makes it certainly very difficult. But I guess my question is there a place where I, as a taxpayer, can look to understand how much like the rec department budget is as a % of our total budget versus comparable towns? Because I guess I think of rec as an investment into Waterbury's future, not necessarily as a cost today. And maybe I'm sure that's different than many other people in this room here, and that's totally fine. But I think that it's important for us to continue to invest in the future of Waterbury, and this is one way to do that. So I just want to understand how this compares.
I'll say I don't know offhand. I don't think we've researched that, and would just note that recreation funding varies really broadly across communities. We have adjoining towns with no recreation programming. I believe there's towns that propose to, I would just say there's a huge spectrum, so I don't have that information offhand. Yeah, but we can work on it. I flipped my page, which had the list of who was next, but I believe it was Valerie.
I need my high heels. Valerie Rogers. I don't want to be the Debbie Downer in the room. I'm for leveling. Is this working? Okay. Okay, go closer. So I just want to be mindful that we don't own Randall Meadow, and that the SLR modeling study. What it did say is that the water levels of up to 1 foot in the flood storage may be reduced. So it says the best scenario would be 1 foot, but there may be no improvement for any of the homes. So the study is about planning, not site-specific. But I am very interested in not having flooding again. I did bring up on Monday my confusion about the $4 million in the bond, but we already got $2 million as a grant. And I think Tom said that the grant didn't cover potentially everything we may want to do. So, okay. But we do have $10,000 that we're giving from local option tax for what the grant doesn't cover. So because I don't understand what the grant doesn't cover, I'm asking the board to release the executed grant for the public to review, so we can read exactly what's in the grant. I mean, it's a public document, correct? That's just a draft. Yeah, so if you could get the actual one, I think that would be, is that hard? Well, we were awarded the $2 million, so there must be. Okay, great. Okay, great.
Hi, I'm Steve Martin. The few things I have to say have more to do with sort of globally and how it trickles down through to the town. First, thank all of you for your service in the town. It's one of the many thankless jobs around, and no matter what you do, you'll get criticized for it, including by me. I'd like to say a couple of things for perspective. The seniors just are getting this month a 2.8% cost of living increase. For me, that's okay because I have planned for some of this in my retirement. I have a friend who, once he gets his 2.8% increase, pays his Medicare premium increase, and he will actually get $1 less than he got last year per month. And in addition, he has the benefit of losing his health insurance because the state of Vermont has driven out another health insurer. So I would like to ask the town to consider all residents, all situations, and reality. Somebody else talked about, you know, the things that they have to absorb. Everybody everywhere is absorbing hard times. I would ask you to look at whatever you can do to not have the town tax increase exceed 2.8% cost of living. And that still hurts citizens because they're not keeping up with that. The other thing I want to comment on is, again, sort of globally and perspective-wise that I'd like people to think about. A couple of times on a couple of subjects, in particular, Randall Meadow has come up about grant money. And historically, I've heard a lot of people talk about, well, we get free money for this and free money for that. The state of Vermont, I think, is inarguably unaffordable. It's the #1 topic in everything. So the state of Vermont, to me, doesn't have a lot of grant money. If they get it, it's from the federal government. The federal government in the last year has passed $38 trillion in debt. To help you visualize how much $38 trillion is, if you laid a $100 bill on the floor and stacked that stack up until it was $38 trillion, that stack would be over 25,000 miles tall. And if you then laid it over on its side, it would more than encircle the earth at the equator. Most of us, we're not going to pay that. There's none of us would live long enough to pay that. The people that are paying that or going to be responsible for it are my probably not even children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, the same with yours. So maybe I'm not for or against Randall Meadow or any of these things. I'm just saying, as citizens and citizens representatives, we need to kind of get with the program here. Times are going to be really tough. I suggest we cut at least enough out of this budget somewhere to get it down to the cost of inflation. And I suggest, as we're thinking about all of these things, we think about the debt load we have already put on our children, grandchildren, great-grandchildren, and that we act super responsibly. The state of Vermont looks forward at a lot of, well, you know, we're trying to do good things for the future. One of the things we can do for the future is let's guard our expenses. Let's spend the money on the stuff that we really have to do. Let's consider the fact that a lot of this state, a lot of this town is senior citizens, and they are going behind as we are adding this, adding that, continuing. There's some things we're going to have to give up. We're just going to have to. Thank you.
First? Or Doug? Doug first.
I'm Doug Greason. I'm Waterbury's representative on the Central Vermont Regional Planning Commission. In that role, I also work with the Central Vermont Economic Development Council on the regional priority list, which Randall Meadow was on, in an effort to become one of the 10 projects in the state of, in the region that are recommended for funding. One of the things, pardon me? One of the things that is evaluated is the extent of the funding commitment. And Randall Meadow fared poorly this year because there was no funding commitment. Next year, with the $2 million grant, that will improve. What I'd like to see is a way that Waterbury could have funds allocated, perhaps out of the local option tax, to show that Waterbury was providing fixed committed funds to that purpose, which would improve the chance of getting additional funds next year through that process. So one of the questions I have, and I apologize, Gary, because I'm not familiar with what the requirements are for the fire vehicles, but I'd like to hear the reason that another fire engine is needed for 2026, which I'm sure there's an excellent reason for. But what I'm wondering if there's a way to defer an expense so that some funds are available this year from the local option tax to allocate for future use in the Randall Meadow project. Thank you.
Gary, you were named. Do you want to respond?
I'm sure you said this before and I wasn't here.
Well, yes. So the truck that we're slated to get this coming year is replacing a truck that was scheduled to be replaced 8 years ago. And that all comes from the merger of the two fire departments. Before we merged, each department would take advantage of saving some money by buying trucks at the same time. So when we bought engines, we bought them at the same time. We bought the tank trucks, we bought them at the same time as two different municipalities. And then when you merge, those trucks are due to be replaced at the same time. Starting when Bill Shepluck was here, we sat down and came up with a different capital improvement plan to start spreading that out. And the tank trucks have been spread out as much as we could this first go around, if you will, for replacement. So in 20, 25 years, I will not worry about it other than, you know, having somebody wheel me in here. They will be spread out even more. So what you can't do is say, oh, they're both the same age, we're just gonna replace one 10 years later. That doesn't really work. So we have spread them out to the degree that we could, and they will continue to be spread out. I can tell you, other than the pickup truck, that short of a catastrophic breakdown of the tower truck, we're not coming back to the taxpayers again for a while for another fire truck. And again, that'll be somebody else's problem. But there are costs, ramifications, I guess, to a municipality that has two different fire departments in it, and now we've been paying that cost the last few years. So that's why it's another, and it's not just another fire truck, it's a tank truck. We operate with 2 tank trucks in Waterbury because of all the rural areas. And our next closest one is either Stowe, maybe Bolton, or Middlesex. And quite honestly, some of the, not Stowe, Stowe's manned, if you will. The other departments, they don't have a lot of people. And we have called from time to time over the years and not gotten a response. So we have to be, to some degree, self-sufficient. And if Stowe has a fire on a rural area where there's no hydrants, their tank truck is going to be used. So then that's why we have to have 2. So I hope that answers the question. Well, then it would be 9 years down the road that it should have been replaced. It's already in poor condition. It's functional. It's safe. But it is, you know, the diamond plate on it, the steps going in, we could replace those. There's other stuff on it. I'm not a mechanic. I just turn the key. The new truck is a demo truck. Sure. So what we have been doing over the, can everybody hear me? I feel like I'm trying to swallow this thing. What we have been doing for the last few trucks is we have been working out an arrangement with a vendor. It's called E1. And the salesman is up in the St. Albans area. And each salesperson is able to put trucks, a certain number of trucks in line, that essentially holding a space. Because sometimes with an engine in particular, if you're ordering it and it's not a demo truck, it can take 2.5 years to get, or 3 years. Tower trucks take in the area of 5 years once you order it to get it. So this vendor has been very generous to Waterbury and has said, look, I have a demo truck, the last 2 engines, the last tank truck, the mini pumper that we just took last year, and this coming tank truck are all demo trucks, meaning they go through an assembly line and it is just exactly what a truck should be with no extra stuff on it. Now, this truck that we're getting proposed to get this year has additional funds for it to outfit it with the stuff that it needs. So, but that's still a $40,000 savings over getting the truck from the vendor with all the bells and whistles. So there's still a savings. If we put it off another year, that truck is going to cost more. And you know, then we're right back to, well, do we need to get it this year? It's my job to say, this is what we believe we need. Keeping in mind that all the officers and most of the members are all taxpayers. So when we're building a budget, I start out with needs. Here's what we need to have in this coming year. And most of that is established by regulation. We need to have gear replaced. We need to have the pumps tested and certified. We need to have the ladder truck, the tower truck, that has to be inspected, that has to be tested, and it has to be certified. So a lot of the vehicle maintenance, if you will, is based on requirement. A lot of the gear that we have, the equipment that we have, a fire coat, mine lasts me 10 years because I stand there and just look charming at a fire. But we have people that literally are pounding their gear going into fires. So sometimes we can replace that, we can fix that. If it's worn out, we can put patches on it. But all the coats, all the pants, all the boots, all the helmets have to be replaced within 10 years or when they just cannot be fixed any longer. The other piece to that is trying to replicate every firefighter that is an interior firefighter with 2 sets of gear, not purchase at the same time, we were trying to get so that it's a 5-year offset. Because when you go to a fire, you have to clean that gear. And if you're cleaning your gear in a machine, you're not going to a fire. So all that stuff that's on that gear, we know, as in the fire service, that is cancer causing. We have to do better for our firefighters to say, all right, your gear's being cleaned, but we still need you for a call. Here's your backup set. That backup set might be going down the road in 3 or 5 years. And we use, quite honestly, if somebody gets done and they have good serviceable gear, and we don't have somebody in line to come in, that's assigned to one of the other firefighters. So all the stuff, fire extinguishers, they have to be inspected every year. Sure.
I have an idea on the truck based on Duck's thing. It's not getting rid of the truck, rest assured. I just wanted to highlight for folks, this truck we're discussing, line 7 in the local option tax draft. I'm just noting that the proposal here is to finance it over 4 years. That likely will require issuing debt. It's beyond just being able to pay it directly out of the local option tax. We could explore an option, Doug, to potentially have that be over 5 years. I also wanted to flag that we have 2 other debts we're paying out of local option tax that will pay for the last time in 2027, so there may be some potential available capacity in future years. Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you for the explanation. I just think it would be worthwhile to have some money set aside this year from local option tax that would go towards showing a funding commitment that would improve our chances, I believe, of getting additional funding down the road.
Yes. So I just wanted to touch on essentially level funding. And I went through this scenario back during the recession, and there's been a couple other times where we've had to level fund, and I totally understand, but level fund means less stuff. Because if we need to get, say, 10 sets of gear, and we level fund for a number of years, eventually we're gonna get down to 4 or 5 sets of gear. And then we're having people wearing gear that they're not supposed to be wearing. So, that's an extreme, but having level funding for a department that has most of our stuff dealing with federal requirements, we're kind of at a road intersection that we don't want to deal with, either saying, yep, sorry, you got to wear that coat for another 2 years because we don't have the funding. So that's, level funding is great for a year or so, but somebody's going to be paying the price down the road.
Other questions or comments, Roger?
Doug, we did put $10,000 for Randall Meadow into the proposal for the local option tax, and so I was just wondering what, if that's not meaningful, what are you asking for?
Good question. Is that money that's allocated for the planning side, or is it money allocated for actually the project? Yeah, okay. Yeah, I guess all I would be asking for would be more. The more it is, the more effective it's going to be, and I can't give you any quantification of that at all. But I just... Yeah. Yeah, so if it's quantified at $10,000, that's a lot better than 0.
Tom, go ahead. And Sandy, you're next.
Just, I was going to kind of repeat what Roger said, so more, but because they're going to be chartered with perhaps making this a little bit more favorable, more, give us a benchmark.
I can't.
Okay.
There's no way to know what a review process against other projects will interpret as.
But if you could show a stream over time, like a commitment of local option in 26, a commitment in 27, a commitment in 28? Okay, thank you.
Sandy's online, and then we'll go to Kathy, and I'll just say, it seems like we'll be doing some follow-up. We already talked about doing modeling, so there might be some way to tie it to what we think actual expense potentially could be. Sandy, and then Kathy, then Chris. Sandy, go ahead.
Yeah, kind of jumping back to what Gary was talking about. Just want to speak first to the fact that purchasing fire trucks does take several years. I know from where I work. And for example, we just bought 2 dump truck chassis, and they're sitting behind a fence because we can't get them upfitted for 18 months to 2 years. So you buy them when you can, and I think the idea that they're choosing one that's a demo is going to save a lot of money, and it's available, and I think it's a good time for that. The other thing that he spoke about was the fire gear, and I think if you look at the line item on workers' comp, you'll see that there was a huge increase on the fire department, and that is partially because of what the problems that can happen with the fire department. I think it's very important to keep them safe in these situations. Buying the gear when they have new staff, the gear doesn't just fit everybody. It needs to be assigned to a person based on their size. So I believe, Gary's very frugal, and if he has an ask, I don't think he's asking too much. The second thing, there was a question asked about the recreation profit and loss and different bring bounce and say that in Stowe the percentage of loss be about the same as what Waterbury is looking at. So I don't think there's any big money maker with the rec department, more so than just something for the residents to be able to, it's a good thing for residents. I don't think it's ever meant to be a money maker, so.
I want to make sure people understand, I was not questioning Gary about the new truck. I thought we voted on it already. I was mixed up with the truck, so that's one thing. Okay, and my husband's been a fireman for 60 years, and what you guys don't know is the number of times we get calls saying this truck is out of service, so can some other city or town loan us their truck? And let me tell you, if your house was on fire, you'd want a truck right near them. So that's the big maintenance thing. The other question I have, and maybe it's the elephant in the room, but we keep talking about trying to find more money. And over the past few years, I've got up at town meeting and spoken about this, but it's out of control, the number of organizations that are asking for free money with very little input. I'm a member of Alpha Delta Kappa, which is a teachers honorary society, and we get so many requests. We finally said, what are going to be our priorities for funding these? And it came down to local and children and education, because there's only so much money, but we don't seem to have any priorities about that. And a couple of times I've been to these meetings, and we give, I think, $5,000 to the Department of Aging, and the person who got up and spoke said she wanted to support it because of yoga classes. There's things that people need to fund themselves that the town shouldn't have to fund. And it goes on and on and on. The Legion, my husband's a veteran. He fought in Vietnam, but it's a private club. The Rotary does a ton for the town, and they don't ask for a line item. It's just beginning to cross boundaries. And not only that, they might ask for $1,000 one year, and then every year, because it comes so easy, it goes up and up. I don't know. I'm willing to bet that we spend between $50,000 and $100,000 a year on those little items. That's a truck. And I don't know if it's you guys set up the procedure for it, or if it's a state procedure for people having to do it, but nobody is going to stand up there on the floor and vote in front of their neighbors. I'm one of 9 kids, and my father was one of 13. I'm related to just about everybody in Waterbury. So it's really hard to stand up and say, I don't support this, or make the motion to not. And we need to do something about this. It's not fair that I and other people are expected to support people's pet causes. And it would be cheaper for us, because I know somebody spoke about we should donate to the Legion because of meetings like today. It would be cheaper to pay them their rental fee than it to keep going up. And so that's my spiel, and I don't know what can be done about it. But something needs to be.
I'll speak to this. Okay, so it's a tradition in Vermont, especially on town meeting day, that if someone wants money from the town, they petition their neighbors and they get on the ballot. You have every right to vote no. And I know you said it's hard, but if you disagree with that spending and you don't think ABC Laundry or whatever should get $4,000 because they're on the ballot because they got their petition signed and they're on your town meeting day question, just vote no.
Well, what is the rule? You didn't answer my question. Is there a rule, a state rule, or is it Waterbury?
Bundling. When are they looking for the bundling rule? A separate article for each. The bundles are, no one's voting against the red problem.
Got it. Okay. So a couple questions. We'll do my best. So I'll note that in general, town clerks are the experts for this. I have emails from Karen Petrovich and Carol Dawes, who's working for us currently, who can send you right to the statute. So I'll send that. Generally, petition. If we, the select board, get a petition with 5% of Waterbury signatures, it needs to go on the warning for town meeting. It could be my least favorite organization in the world. It is going to the voters at town meeting. So that's the general thing. Our policy and practice for it has been two things. So there is some select board discretion in here. Organizations that have been funded repeatedly for multiple years at an amount, not asking for an increase, we have put back on the warning without requiring them to get signatures again. So there's organizations that have been funded for a number of years. If they are not asking for an increase, they have just requested, here's our amount. If it's not an increase and you've been funded in the past, we put it back on the warning. We, when we were drafting the warning last year, made a decision to say all requests under, I believe it was $2,000, folk can check me, we clumped together. And that was just, we looked at, here's the list of requests, we said what seems to be a reasonable threshold, and we chose to put them on all the 2,000 together. Our practice has been if organizations are asking for an increase or are a new organization that has not received funding previously, we ask them to go out and get petition signatures. At our last meeting for the select board, I want to just give you the right date so it's on the website. Under the 1/5/26 email, there is an email from Karen Petrovich with a list of who had requested that funding. So that is available. Again, up until the 16th, folks have the ability to submit, but that's what's theirs currently. So it is a combination of both what we have to follow in the law, what a policy the select board has had, and then town meeting day itself. Totally. Different towns have different policies. I heard in Berry City, you need to submit a 990 the first year you're doing it. We have not had that in a board in my 4 years on the board. We could do it. Last year, we tried to do a policy around paying them if they are awarded funding at town meeting but don't actually invoice the town, that we probably shouldn't send the money. So we've made updates, but ultimately it's a select board policy. So that would be something we can talk about. Yeah. I will just say, in general, I support the policy we've had, which is if it's been funded multiple years at the same amount, putting it on the warning and asking for signatures for increase in new. I will say, personally, I support that.
I think it's, the number that's, I think last year it was $58,000 in special articles. It's going up. And I have spoken multiple times at select board meetings. I'm really concerned about these special articles. I agree with you, Kathy. I think there might be some more criteria. And sometimes I know we went to bundle, and I think Alyssa said 2,000, but I think it's under $1,000 or under that they're grouped. I think that's also created problems because no one wants to single out, say, I want to segregate XYZ organization. I think we need to eliminate this creep because it's just going to keep on happening every year. And you know, I think what you said was a good example, is something that's good for education. There are a number of things that can be, but yes, that might be something for a select board preview, because I think everything, it's the quote do-gooders kind of or organizations, and a lot of people do good things, but that's what your personal ability to donate to those charities is. Thanks.
And just one thing about what we decided to do is instead of giving to the Vermont Food Bank, we started giving to the local food banks in Chittenden County, which is where the group is, because so much of the money is spent on administration, which we had no control.
Gary, go ahead.
Thanks, just real quick. Did everybody that got on a special article last year and was given money, did they receive the money this year? Because I know historically, there are some organizations that don't then request the money, which to me is problematic. They're asking for the money and then they don't get it because they didn't ask or come in and get it. And, oh, crap. The other piece. I would like to see personally that the organization that is asking for the money have an official representative to ask for that money and explain what it's for. There's some people that just get up because people are just sitting there waiting for a motion, and people get up and say, well, I think this is a great organization, so I make the motion. Well, I want to hear from the organization. That's what I want to hear from. I don't want to hear from my neighbor, who I got great neighbors, but I don't want them to stand up and say, I think this is a great organization, we should just give them the money. That's not fair.
I don't have a report on who has paid and not, but we can get that. That is easy. And to your point, Gary, last year we did make a formal motion saying that if they hadn't invoiced, we would not just push the funds upon you, because if you ask for them, you could go through the work of invoicing. And we did also request an organization. I don't think we specified we asked for a representative day of at town meeting. I don't think for that mega combined article, but for the rest of them, again, in some case it did end up being a community member, but we did make that request. I see Chris is here up the front to speak. I just want to note it's about 11:27, so I'm happy to stay here and continue taking questions, but just wanted to have that awareness for everyone, and also do an early thank you to folks for being here. But Chris, I'll turn it over to you.
Thanks, Alyssa. To your point, Gary, maybe it's time that we just draw a line in the sand. I'll go one better here. Draw a line in the sand and say, we've got this list, that's enough. I'm sure you people here are aware of the fact that I was on the select board for 10 years. The whole time I was on the board, one of the reasons I got on the board was the fact that our infrastructure was falling apart so much, and I felt like I could bring to the table some solutions and explain why we needed to increase the amount of money we spent to improve our roads, because we were falling so woefully behind that it would devastate us to try to catch up. I was able to double the amount of paving expenditures that we were spending year over year. Even though the cost of asphalt was going up, we did manage to gain some ground on how much we were paving year over year. In the 10 years I was on the board, we worked within the context of our tax rate. We did have some windfalls that helped us out. ARPA was one of them. We were able to keep our tax rate 51 cents for 3 years in a row and still accomplish more because of some of those windfalls. There's been conversation about the local options tax today. That has become the go-to fund for everything. And kind of like the Federal Reserve, for every dollar in there, we've promised it to 10 different people. And that's what's happening to our local options tax, or what's going to happen to it. I have to apologize to people here, and I will apologize on town meeting day, the fact that last year I said because of this new introduction of the local options tax into the municipal coffers, we potentially shouldn't see a tax increase for a decade or two. This current year was the first year of the full-blown amount of that projected revenue, which was close to $1 million. And as the budget stands right now, we're looking at a tax increase. When I left the board, working within the context of the current tax rate, which creeped up a little bit every year, that budget was not out of control. Our spending was not out of control, and our falling behind was not out of control. So what's got me scratching my head is, how with $1 million of revenue that we never had before, are we still asking for an increase on our tax rate? The Randall Meadows project, the bond, I've asked that the board bring, when we have that informational meeting, bring the consequence potentially of, we've got a $2 million grant, we could be on the hook for the other $2 million. What's that going to do to our tax rate? In the maintenance cost of maintaining that project, if it continues to flood, there's going to be cleanup efforts that have to be made when it floods to maintain that new level that we bring it down to hopefully reduce our flood level by potentially a foot. I want to know on a map the reduction of that water line around the parameters of the current flood parameters, how many houses will be completely salvaged or not impacted by that reduction of potentially a foot, and how many will still be in that parameter that instead of seeing 3 feet in their house, they'll see 2 feet. I got to believe there's no reduction in cleanup efforts in that. I did reach out to Tom Lights just yesterday. He'd already asked me about dealing with the product that come out of that field, if I had a use for it. I said to him, well, first we got to figure out what the product is and how toxic it is, which I got to believe it is, and where it could possibly go. I just reached out to him again yesterday and said to him, I may have a spot for it. The fact that I'm not really encouraged on taking on another $2 million bond, but if it happens by voters' choice, I'll do what I can to keep the cost down, if in fact I can use that product. What I worry about moving forward here is getting way out over our skis, taking on more. That $1 million revenue is not going to fluctuate that much because we don't have, like the town of Stowe has, this big beautiful mountain that brings so many revenues in that they've got a positive cash flow constantly. I don't think our $1 million will fluctuate that much. In fact, if anything, I believe you may see a reduction in it. As inflation continues to go up, the value of our dollar continues to go down, so that there's a catastrophe here in the making. We have to be mindful of that. That current revenue source, additional revenue source of local options tax, most of it's going to be needed just to maintain what we already have, I believe. Like I said earlier, we're almost $400,000 in the red in our recreation and parks. Is there the ability to buy that down or not subsidize it, but fill that hole with some of the local options tax? If we were to do that this year, half of it would be gone. So we wouldn't have some of these items on the budget that we're paying down because it'd be eaten up by that program, those programs. Yeah, so I just want to say one more thing. I'm disappointed that there's not more people here. Gina Galfetti just reached out to me. She's proposing at the State House a freeze on property taxes for the next 3 years. What I'm asking is, and I'm going to ask it at town meeting, I want to see a 0% increase, period. Some point, the taxpayers have to catch their breath. And I know Kane's going to say, bring more people in, that's going to solve the problem. Well, I said to him the other day, let's go to some of these other towns that have built and expanded and see what they're saying about how that's treated the tax rate. Because if they were successful in achieving that lowering of tax rate, better quality of life, they'd be screaming from the rooftops, look at what we've done. But they're not. Thanks.
Tori's wondering if we're on to other public comment. I guess I have a couple quick administrative notes. I do just want to say one thing that we've named explicitly at no point, but one of the core municipal infrastructures we have in this town is municipal staff. I'm not plowing roads, I'm not the town planner, I'm not collecting your tax payment. And I just want to note, we have a 3.5% increase in all of our regular pay lines, which is inflation and cost of living increase for employees. So I just want to say we can go back to this budget, we can dig deep, but I just want to acknowledge that that is a not insignificant driver in many of our municipal departments, and it's a reasonable and appropriate cost of living increase. So again, I'm just noting that that is there. We have gravel roads and sidewalks and LOT. So again, I think we're going to digest this. I want to thank everyone for their input. Is there any other public comment before Tori's ready to adjourn? I did want to flag that the Randall Meadow Award letter is posted under the 12:15 and 12:22 Select Board agendas, and the full draft is under the 9:22 public hearing. Again, hopefully we can get that all on one page on the municipal website. I do not have access to the municipal website, so we'll work to get that all together, but those materials are there for those interested. Any other Select Board members with closing comments? It looks like Tom. And also, Tom, if you want to email that list of questions so we can have it ready for Monday. I will note we have an hour and maybe I should tweak the time a little.
Administrative, typically at Orca, right? Sir, you're Orca, okay. What's published on the internet, Mondays is not yet, the video is not there. So it was hard to come into here because that's why a lot of my questions, I want to go see what you guys talked about Monday. So I would just recommend if it can be achieved, that session where you guys did play with the soup a little bit, right? That the public can look at that, be informed by some of this discussion, because I mean, I'm a frequent watcher, right? I don't go to all your meetings because I think that's your business, but I do like the dialogue that goes in. And then the last thing I'll say, I will ask a lot of questions. Most of them are just to be informed. Where are we going? That's it. I think Steve said it, you have a thankless job, each one of you. So I will thank you. And for those that are perhaps moving on, if you're not going to run again or whatever, thank you for the time you spent, because I know this is hard work. You're going to get a lot of criticism from a lot of people, but it's all well-meaning. It's all about making the town solvent and making it grow so that things like, where this will be one of the questions, the grand list didn't grow. What happened? You know, and I don't understand that. It grew by $57,000, but we built. So I don't quite understand how that math works. So I'll ask that of Tom probably on Monday, but I will email the questions I have. Thank you. Did it just get published? It was available yesterday afternoon. I looked at it on YouTube. Maybe I'm Googling it. I'm trying this morning, but thank you.
Tom, thank you for coming, and thank you all for coming. And I do appreciate those who do stay in touch, but you need to stay in touch. You're looking at, Stowe is looking at raising their options tax from 1% to 2%. Are we going to look at having to have, and that's what I know I'm going off the select board, so it's not going to be my responsibility, but I'm going to be out in the audience bugging about, because I don't want to see increased taxes. Everyone wants things, but it's like your own household budget. Sometimes you need to do without. That's all I have to say. Thanks.
And I get to say that's not our jurisdiction, so is there a motion to adjourn?
Does Sandy have a hand? Question?
Yep, go ahead.
Is it possible to put the,
Yeah.
I'm not really sure where it goes.
We lost what you were looking for, Sandy. We said, could you put the, and then you cut out.
Sorry. If the Zoom meeting is recorded every time, is there any reason that can't be put right up after the meeting?
Cheryl Casey's raising her hand, and I'll let her answer. And also thank and acknowledge her as our note taker for this meeting and other select board meetings. Thank you, Cheryl.
That's actually something that I have talked to Tom about looking into, and the problem is that Zoom files themselves are far too large for our website to accommodate. We are talking through some options, including the town, and these are just things we've been talking through to sort of game plan. No decisions have been made. But something like the town establishing its own YouTube account so that we can use that as a mechanism for publishing them. But that is why they're not currently posted directly on the website, and we rely on the Orca recordings because those files are just gargantuan and can't be handled on our site.
Do you have to download them, or I thought that they could stay on the Zoom website and a link be put on there so it's not downloaded to the server, even if it's only for until the Orca is put out. I mean, that's only usually a week, so at least anyone who wasn't able to attend would have a pretty immediate view of it, because it gives time to think about what's happened, and until Orca comes out, you'll have at least some idea.
Awesome. I think we can look into that. Thanks, Sandy. Appreciate it. All right. Any other notes or comments from folks? Thank you all for attending. Thank you to Chris from Orca, who is the reason we will have a recording of this, and Orca in general. And Select Board, do we have a motion to adjourn? Motion by Tori, second by Kane. All those in favor? Aye. Thank you all. And feel free to come up if you have other questions or want to chat further. We'll be here for a bit. Thank you all.